Viewer discretion is advised. Can international horror movies really terrify a Western audience? The truth is, some will feel the fear, especially those who can connect even a little with the ancient rituals, legends, and spirits that these stories are built on. These aren't just stories. They're woven into the very fabric of life and death. And sometimes, the unseen can cross the world and come over right into our world. And what is that? Diving into 16 international horror films. Not every film on this list is pure nightmare fuel, but I promise there are picks here that will absolutely disturb you, and they're all ones you can watch this week. Welcome to HKX Picks, I'm Dave. Let's start with number 10.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Makmum is about Rini, a mortuary beautician who returns to the boarding school where she grew up to work as a summer tutor. The school's quiet routine is shattered by restless spirits targeting students during prayer times, with a particularly malevolent ghost fixated on possession and disruption. Rini's unique ability to communicate with the dead makes her the last line of defense against these supernatural forces. The film leans heavily on classic Indonesian horror elements, haunted schools, spiritual possession, and the clash between belief and skepticism. The tension builds gradually through eerie atmosphere and unsettling moments, rather than heavy gore or sudden jump scares. Its strength lies in the cultural context of a spiritual disturbance during prayer, which adds a chilling layer for those familiar with these traditions. On the scariness scale, Makmum scores around 60%, enough to keep you engaged and a bit on edge, but not a full-on terror assault. It's best suited for viewers who enjoy slow-burning supernatural horror with cultural depth, rather than those chasing, intense scares or graphic horror. Overall, Hitchcock's picks give Makmum a solid 6 out of 10 for its effective, mood, and respectful treatment of Indonesian spiritual horror. If you're loving these picks, hit like and subscribe. More killer recommendations are coming your way.
지금 일어나고 있는 거 진짜야! 우리 나가야 돼! 대장 어딨어?
Gonjiam Haunted Asylum 2018 follows Hajun, the ambitious host of a ghost hunting YouTube channel, who brings a crew of thrill seekers into a real abandoned psychiatric hospital for a live broadcast. The place, infamous. The plan, ragged scares. But what starts as harmless entertainment unravels into something they can't control or explain. This film blends found footage terror with cultural superstition and internet-era desperation. Spirits don't disappear here, they infect the frame. The build-up is surgical, tension tightens by the minute, and the jump scares land like a hammer. What makes Gonjiam terrifying isn't just what you see, but what you don't. There's no heavy gore, just dread, spiraling madness, and moments that feel way too real. The scare factor could be a 73%, unsettling enough to leave the lights on, especially if you're watching alone. This one's for fans of found footage horror who want their scares raw, modern, and immersive. Hitchcock's Picks overall score gives Gonjiam a 7.5 out of 10. It's intense, chilling, and one of the best in the genre. Medium 2021 is about Nim, spiritual medium in rural Thailand who believes she's being chosen by a local goddess named Bayan. But when her niece Mink begins to show signs of something darker, possession, multiple personalities, violent behavior, the hunting turns into a generational curse unraveling in real time. What sets the medium apart is how deep it digs into spiritual horror. This isn't just a ghost story, it's a collapse of belief systems, lineage, and sanity. The suspense is suffocating. The possession scenes are some of the most disturbing I've seen. There's gore, yes, but it's the emotional breakdowns, the slow dread, and the relentless escalation that crush you. And when the ritual begins, there's no going back. The scare factor could be a 75%. It's visceral, uncomfortable, terrifying in ways that sneak into your bones. If you like found footage done right, possession horror without cliches, and a story soaked in cultural specificity, this one's for you. Hitchcock's overall score for it is a 7.5 out of 10, a decent into spiritual terror you won't forget. The Sadness 2021 is about Jim and Kat, a young couple trying to survive the outbreak of a mutated virus sweeping through Taiwan. But this isn't a typical infection. What starts as a flu-like illness rapidly becomes a grotesque psychological meltdown, turning ordinary people into sadistic maniacs, driven by cruelty, lust, and violence. This movie doesn't ease you in. The horror hits early and hard. There is no demon, no ingenious spirit, just a real-world virus unhinging every instinct we try to suppress. The gore is relentless, not stylish, not pretty, just raw, filthy, and depraved. And yet, beneath all that madness, the tension between Jim and Kat keeps the story human. You want them to survive, you're terrified they won't. There's almost no room to breathe. Every frame feels unsafe. But this isn't psychological horror, it's shock horror. The scare factor for it would be at 68%. Not terrifying in the traditional sense, but deeply disturbing and emotionally scarring. Watch this only if you have a strong stomach and can handle graphic violence with no supernatural cushion. Hitchcock's Big's overall score is 7.2 out of 10. Brutal, unforgettable, and one of the boldest horror films of the decade. A Tale of Two Sisters 2003 is about Sami, a teenage girl returning home from a mental institution with her younger sister Soo-yeon. They're back in their secluded country house. But something's wrong. The atmosphere is heavy, their stepmother is distant, and the past is far from buried. This is a film built on quiet dread. It doesn't rely on gore or jump scares. Instead, it gets under your skin with mood, grief, and hallucination. You feel the coldness in every frame, the tension between the sisters and their stepmother, the silence of the house, the strange shadows that seem to move just out of view. It's not about demons or possession, it's the trauma itself that haunts. The film's horror lies in uncertainty. What's real? What isn't? And the further it goes, the more unhinged it becomes, until your own grip on reality starts to fray with it. The scare factor for it is 68%, unnerving and deeply atmospheric, but not terrifying in the traditional sense. It will mess with your mind, not your pulse. If you love psychological horror that unfolds like a tragic puzzle, this is essential. Overall, Hitchcock's Pixie score is 7.8 out of 10, disturbing, beautiful, and quietly devastating.
私の手や足を見なさい。
The Wailing 2016 is about a small-town police officer named John Gu. His life collapses after a series of bizarre killings grip his village in fear. As the bodies pile up, his daughter starts to unravel, not with symptoms, but with something far darker, something ancient, something inhuman. This is not your typical possession story. No loud jump scares, no predictable demons. This is slow, crawling horror that feels like a curse taking hold of your soul in real time. The Wailing is a masterclass in spiritual dread. It builds confusion, dread, paranoia, and then rips apart everything you thought was true. It lies to you, it whispers in your ear, and just when you think understand something, it flips the table and laughs in your face. By the end of it, you're not scared, you're shaken. It's the kind of film that disappoints you on purpose, because it wants to leave something broken in you. Demons, rituals, curses, deceit, but none of it feels fictional. And that's the horror. The scare factor for it is 80%. This one hurts, not with gore, but with what it does to you with the story. Hitchcock's Pic's overall score is 8 out of 10. You'll regret watching it, but you won't forget it. Dabbe 5 Curse of the Jinn is about a woman named Dilek who begins having nightmares so vivid, so violent that she wakes up believing she's just murdered her own husband. The horror doesn't stop when she opens her eyes. In fact, it's only just begun. One name keeps returning in her dreams: Hades, a powerful ancient jinn whose eye, according to legends, can change the fate of the world. When Dilek begs for surveillance cameras to be installed around her home, what they capture is far worse than anything she imagined. Entities, distorted voices, a woman flashing demonic codes, and something far more ancient waiting in the dark, watching. There are no jump scares here just for effect. Instead, the fear builds slowly like black smoke in a locked room. This movie smoothers you with dread rooted deeply in Islamic folklore and ritualistic horror, from cursed closets to the terrifying chorus stone test that reveals whether you're possessed. Dabbe 5 turns possession into something spiritual, not just supernatural. Scare factor for it is 84%. Undeniably terrifying, especially if you grew up in cultures where the jinn aren't fiction, but fact. The overall score for Hitchcock's Pic's is 8.4 out of 10. Uncomfortable, oppressive, and deeply disturbing. One of the most unique possessions ever put on a screen. Dabbe 4 The Possession is about a woman named Kubra, who on the eve of her wedding suddenly slaughters her fiancé during a sacred ceremony. The moment is the beginning of a possession so horrifying it drags in her childhood friend Ibro, now a psychiatrist, who returns to the cursed village to investigate what she believes are primitive superstitions, until it's far too late. What begins as a curiosity turns into an unrelenting descent through demonic revenge, black magic, and intergenerational curses. This film doesn't care about easing you in. It pulls you into the middle of an Islamic nightmare filled with buried jinn, forbidden rituals, and ancestral scenes that can't be undone. Dabbe 5 excels at psychological tension, slow burn dread, and ritualistic horror. There are no Hollywood filters here, just raw, unfiltered fear rooted in deeply spiritual terror that feels real. The visuals are grainy, the build-up is suffocating, and by the final act, you feel like you've been cursed yourself. The scare factor for it is 86%. This one is genuinely terrifying, especially if you grew up hearing stories about jinn and you're familiar with Islamic traditions. The overall Hitchcock's Pic's score is 8.7 out of 10, one of the best in Dabbe's series. and maybe one of the most disturbing Turkish horror movies. Ju-un, the Grudge, is about a social worker named Rika, sent to care for an old woman living in a quiet Tokyo home. A home that holds something far more dangerous than dust and decay. Years earlier, a man murdered his wife, son, and even the family cat in a fit of jealousy. What he left behind was no ordinary haunting. It was a curse, one that spreads like a virus, one that dooms every soul who steps through the front door. This film doesn't use loud jump scares to shake you. It seeps under your skin with that croaking sound, those stares that last too long, and that slow, dreadful crawl of death, always waiting. Demons, spirits, possession, here they blur into one. The curse itself becomes the monster. The scare factor for it would be 89%. A near relentless dread machine that doesn't just scare you, it follows you. The overall Hitchcock Pixar score for it is 8.9 out of 10. It's quiet, it's slow, and it's horrifying. If you like your horror unforgiving and inescapable, this one will break you. And our first pick, Siccin 2. It's about a woman named Hikran, whose life collapses after a freak accident takes the life of her young son. Her husband, Adnan, becomes cold and distant, blaming her for the loss. But the real horror hasn't even begun. What starts as grief slowly rots into something far more sinister. Because what killed their child wasn't played, it was summoned. As Hikran begins to dig into her family's buried past, the shadows in her house get louder. Genes, ancient witchcraft, real-life exorcism recordings. This film doesn't play around. Siccin 2 isn't just terrifying, it's aggressive. The possession scenes, unrelenting. The demons, cruel. And the build-up, slow and sharp, like a knife pressed into your throat. This is Turkish horror at its most brutal. The scare factor is 90%. This is pure terror. It has real witchcraft rituals inside and original recorded audio of an actual exorcism. I mean, no safety net there. The Hitchcock Pixar overall score is 9 out of 10. Only watch this if you can handle the kind of horror that stays with you, not just in your nightmares, but in your house. Now, before we wrap things up, let's take a quick look at some honorable mentions that didn't make the final list, but definitely deserve a scream or two. Number 1, Let the Right One In, 2008. A lonely boy in 1980s Sweden befriends a mysterious child who isn't exactly what she seems. This one's chilling, intimate, and quietly brutal. It's less about jump scares, more about emotional dread, pure art house horror. Under the Shadow, 2016. A mother and daughter are trapped in post-revolution Tehran, hunted by both war and very real gene. Atmospheric, smart, and quietly terrifying. It's a rare blend of social horror and folklore that sticks with you. Ivana, 2022. A blind woman with the ability to sense spirits moves into a retirement home, where a headless entity is waiting. If you're into haunted house horror with gruesome twists, this Indonesian shocker brings the heat. Sewu Dino, 2023. A woman takes a job as a caretaker, only to realize she's part of a horrifying ritual. With a strong folklore roots and intense supernatural elements, it's one of the scariest new releases from Indonesia. The Third Eye, 2017. A woman cursed with second sight opens the door to a hidden world of restless spirits. It's a slow burn with a rewarding payoff. If you love classic haunted house vibes, this one's worth your time. Tombad 2018. A greedy man searches for treasure hidden in the womb of a goddess and awakens an ancient curse. Tombad is pure visual poetry with a nightmarish core. Not just horror, it's horror done artfully. Now listen, fear is personal. What terrifies one person might feel mild to another. So if you totally disagree with my ranking, that's fair. Horror hits differently for all of us. But if this video helped you discover even one movie you hadn't seen, if it saved you time or gave you something new to be scared of, then hey, maybe I earned that like and subscribe. That's all I ask. Oh, and this is just part 1. I've got another 16 terrifying picks coming your way in the weeks ahead. So keep your lights on and your notifications even brighter. I'm Dave, and if you start seeing shadows after watching this list, don't blame me, blame the gene. See you in the next nightmare.